Okay, so right now I think I'm the only one that's not muted. Okay, so just so everybody knows, we're recording this. You will all be on my YouTube channel, so I hope you look pretty. And I am very happy to introduce, so I think the majority of you have met my friend and salesman, Kurt. Wave, Kurt. Kurt's done a few tastings for me in the past, but tonight's wines are all from a company called Vineyard Brands. And Vineyard Brands represents wineries all over the world. And Patrick is our district rep for Vineyard Brands. Unfortunately, his big thing is Portuguese wines, and that's the one wine that didn't make it this week. So we replaced the Portuguese wine with another French wine. So it's not really, we're not really all over the world, but we're kind of all over the world. So I will introduce Patrick and he'll tell you a little bit about himself and then we'll get started. And so my rules, I'm keeping everybody muted, but feel free to unmute yourself if you want to talk or put something in the chat. And of course, the one big rule I have is everybody, you all have my cell phone number. Everybody has to send me a picture of what you're drinking, how you're drinking, what you're eating, who you're with. I want to see great creative pictures. Okay. So thank you very much for coming. And I'll turn it over to Patrick.
Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing? I can't hear your responses, but I'm assuming it's well. It's a gorgeous spring night. Finally, maybe spring is officially here. So it's the perfect night to be drinking wine outside. I'm a little jealous of those of you sitting outside because I was like this close setting up outside and I didn't. And now I feel like I made a mistake, but I'm going to make the most of it right here. So I work for a company called Vineyard Brands. We're a wine importer, which means we bring wines from all over the world into the US. Tonight, we're going to taste wines from Spain, France, South Africa, and Italy. I'm also the Portuguese brand manager, brand ambassador for the company, but we had a Portuguese wine on deck, as Stacey just mentioned, but it didn't ship to the store this week. So sorry that it's not there. But if you guys haven't tried dry, red, and white Portuguese table wines, you should definitely try them. They're fantastic. And it's like probably one of the best value areas in the world for wine these days. So really quickly about the company, we focus on family-owned wineries from around the world. So when you go into the liquor store these days, and as most of you guys know, as wine lovers, in the last 15, 20 years, the wine scene in the US has changed dramatically. 20 years ago, there was maybe 1/4 of the wine you see in the stores now. A lot of those wines are made by big industrial companies. They're publicly traded companies on the NASDAQ. We don't deal with any wines like that. We deal with family-owned wineries. There's someone behind each and every winery. There's farmers that work the vineyards. There's someone that owns the winery. When you buy a bottle of wine from these wineries, you're directly impacting the family owners and their employees. So that's one of the things that really drew me to this company. Furthermore, we're an employee-owned company. So every member that works for Vineyard Brands, there's 65 employees. We all own part of the company. So that's another aspect of the company that I found to be really appealing. Really quickly, just about me, I was a sommelier and wine director in New York and New Jersey for 11 years before I came to Vineyard Brands. I've been in the wine industry for 16 years. So if you have any questions during the course of this discussion and tasting, please ask. If you have a question, it's likely that someone else in the group has the same question. So definitely feel free to ask, and we can get as nerdy or as not nerdy as you want to. Cool? Okay, so should we jump into the first wine? All right, so the first wine is from South Africa. It's Mann Family Vineyards Chenin Blanc. Have any of you guys had South African wine before? It's a pretty big wine growing region in the world, but most people don't associate Africa with wine. But it's another area, much like Portugal, that offers great value. So this is made from a grape called Chenin Blanc, which originally comes from the Loire Valley in France. After the Loire Valley, South Africa is the area in the world that makes the second largest by volume amount of Chenin Blanc. Locally, it's called Steen. So if you have your bottle on the label, it says free run Steen. That's the local dialect name for Chenin Blanc. Chenin Blanc is very similar to Sauvignon Blanc, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have had, in that it's often used to make dry, clean, fresh, bright, crisp white wines. And I think that you'll find that this wine really fits that profile. It's done entirely in stainless steel. The grapes are harvested early to preserve acidity, and it's really clean, fresh, bright. It's a nice aperitif style, and it's a really good value wine. So it's really bright. It's citric, lemon, lime. There's a lot of like bright green apple. And you guys feel your mouth when you take a sip. You feel you're salivating. That's your body's response to the acidity. It's getting you salivating. And if you guys have ever heard of an aperitif, which is in Europe, they drink an aperitif before dinner. It's an alcoholic beverage used to stimulate your appetite and your palate. This wine is like the perfect style aperitif because it's low alcohol, it's bright acidity. It's going to get you kind of in the mood for food. So I hope that you have some snacks to enjoy while we're tasting 5 wines. Really quickly about the name, man has nothing to do with masculinity. It's actually an acronym of the 3 partners' wives' first names. I know it's confusing, but I'm going to explain it. So the 3 partners, it's 2 guys that work in vineyards. One is a farmer and one is a viticulturist. Excuse me, one is a viticulturist or farmer, and the other one's a winemaker. It's Jose Conde. And then one of their brothers is the finance guy. So they all had full-time jobs. One of them was basically in charge of farming vineyards in South Africa. The other one was a winemaker, and the other guy was a banker. And they wanted to start their own winery that they had complete control of. And they knew that if they did that, their wives would kill them because they all already had full-time jobs. And they knew that if they started a second full-time job, they'd never be at home. So they decided, as an homage to their wives and to keep them out of trouble, to name the winery after their wives. And they're still alive today, and it's been 15 years of this, so I think it worked pretty well. Stace, do you want to comment on some wines too? Do you want to jump in?
I'm loving what you're doing, but I'm open to any questions that anybody
if anyone has questions or thoughts or comments, feel free to share them.
So I will ask you to go deeper into the Steen versus Chenin and the different kinds of Chenin. Like you can have a really sweet Chenin, or you can have an off-dry Chenin.
Okay, so typically in the Loire Valley, where the Chenin grape comes from, they make different styles. It's a really versatile grape because if you pick it early and ferment it dry, you'll create a really lean, bright, high acid wine like the one that we're tasting now. But there's a region called Vouvray, which is famous for Chenin Blanc, but done in dry, in semi-sweet, and in very sweet styles. So that's one of the special things about Chenin. You can harvest it really late and make really attractive, luscious, sweet wines. But because there's so much natural acidity, the wines are still really bright and clean and fresh, and they're not cloying and like sticky. So think of like simple syrup. You guys all know simple syrup because you've had it at the bar, or you've had it at the coffee shop. It's basically sugar dissolved in water. When you taste it, it just tastes like sugar water. When you taste the sweet wine, it has balance because the acidity is so high, it counterbalances all the sweetness. Not every grape can be used to make a sweet wine because grapes that are low in acid won't create a balanced wine. You'll have a wine that basically tastes like sugar water. So certain grapes like Chenin Blanc, like Sauvignon Blanc in some cases, are really good for making sweet wines because you have the acid to counterbalance the sugar and create a wine that's tasty and has balance and has poise and complexity. So if you think about Sauternes as an example, Sauternes is a famous sweet wine from Bordeaux, France. Chateau Yquem is probably the most famous Sauternes. It's made from Sauvignon Blanc because it's another white variety that has tons of acid. So when you pick it really late, you still have a ton of acidity to balance all the sugars. Cool. Did you like that overall description? If you enjoy this style of wine and this wine, I would encourage you to try some Chenin from the Loire. They tend to be a little bit more expensive, but they also tend to sometimes be a little bit richer, a little bit more textural. They'll have a riper fruit component compounded with some savory and mineral components. So it's just like a fun style of wine that most people are not familiar with. I know a lot of wine nerds that really love Vouvray as an example, or Samur, or Chinon Blanc, or Anjou. But outside of that wine nerd kind of context, not a lot of people are super familiar with Chenin. I can tell you that in New York and San Fran and Chicago, Chenin is like one of the nerdy like sommelier wines, much like Riesling. Like all somms love Riesling, but like tons of people don't drink them on a daily basis. Like Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay are the most widely consumed white varieties in the U.S., but Chenin is not something that tons of people drink all the time. But I think it's delicious. I hope you guys like it. And I think it's like the perfect wine to start with, because this will be the lightest of all the wines that we're having tonight.
People still drink Chardonnay?
You would be amazed about how many people still drink Chardonnay. And you know, like the Kendall Jackson style that like you and I don't drink at all. It's like still the #1 style of white wine consumed in the country. Buttery, creamy, big, rich, oaky, like banana split wine. Yeah, I'm with you.
That reminds me of Kurt has this story about the Words with Friends woman that said that she was a big wine drinker. When you asked her what her favorite wine was, she said, oh God, what was it?
It was Yellowtail Merlot.
Yeah. She kept saying what a big wine drinker she was, and her favorite wine was Yellowtail. I love that.
You know, I have to say, and I don't drink Yellowtail, and I haven't drank Yellowtail in like 25 years. But the good thing about Yellowtail then and still today is that it's a gateway wine for a lot of people. When someone's used to drinking, I mean, what are those like?
Arbor Mist or Sutter Home White Zinfandel?
Yeah, and what's the new thing, like the Trulies? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's like a hot thing right now. But a lot of times the first wine that people, like dry table wine that people have, is something like Yellowtail, you know? So, and then they get a taste for that, and then they want to try new things, try more. It's like a gateway wine. So that's like, to me, the good side of Yellowtail. Although again, I haven't drank it in 25 years, but in college I did drink it. Should we jump into wine 2? Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to go from South Africa up to Italy. So the second wine that we're going to taste is Casal di Serra by Umani Ranchi. It's Verdicchio di Castello di Jesi from the Marche in eastern central Italy. So you guys, have most of you guys heard of Montepulciano di Abruzzo? Montepulciano di Abruzzo is like a super famous kind of Italian table wine. Think of like a pizzeria wine, or like a pasta wine. So right next to Abruzzo, which is where Montepulciano di Abruzzo comes from, there's a region called the Marche. And in the Marche, they make Montepulciano, but they also make a white wine called Verdicchio. Verdicchio in the US is like super difficult to sell because it's not Pinot Grigio, but it's delicious. And I think offers a ton of great value and a lot more seriousness and a lot more complexity than the average Pinot Grigio offers that we can find in the stores. So Umani Ranchi is the producer. They, in Italy and actually Japan, which is their biggest export market, they're a super famous, super prestigious winery. In the US, nobody's heard of them. So they came to Vineyard Brands about 5 years ago saying, hey, we're one of the top wineries in Italy. We're one of the top wineries in Japan. We're sold in all over Europe, but we have no presence in the US, and we want to change that. So little by little over the past few years, we've been promoting the winery. We've been getting it out in tastings. And a lot of times people have never had Verdicchio, and they're not super familiar with the Marche as a wine growing region. So this wine is a single vineyard wine. It's certified organic, which I think is really great. And as a company, we try to support as many organic and biodynamic and sustainable growers as we can. And we try to help our farmers convert their vineyards into organics by supporting them. So it's a single vineyard organic wine. Verdicchio is the grape. There's 2 appellations for Verdicchio in the Marche. One is Verdicchio di Castello di Jesi, which is really easy for Americans to say. And then the other one is Verdicchio di Metallica. They're interesting in that they're high altitude wines coming from a kind of a seaside region. So in this part of Italy, you would classically have this wine on the beach, you know, sitting on a table right on the seaside on a terrace with grilled fish or with crudo. Do you guys all know what crudo is? Crudo is like the Italian version of sushi or sashimi. And it's something they've been eating in Italy for a long time. And it's something that Mario Batali and Joe Bastiani started doing in New York maybe like 10 years ago. And everyone thought they were making it up when they said it's Italian sashimi, but it's actually true. When you go to Italy, they will take a fish that they caught that day and they'll cut it into thin slices and put it on a plate and put some sea salt on it and some really, really, really good extra virgin olive oil. And you have that with this style of wine. Now, when you taste this wine relative to the first wine, there's a lot more minerality here. It's a very savory wine. There's a lot more intensity here also. So the acid is brighter. The wine's more intense. It's got like almost a saline, salty component to it. It's got a lot of citrus also. And I think of it like citrus pith. You know when you have a lemon and you have the white part under the zest and the white part has a little bit of bitterness? That's what I think about when I have this wine. And this is, when I make linguine with clams, this is the wine I drink every single time, no joke. Because when you have that herbaceousness with food, with the chili flake and with the garlic and with the saltiness of the clams, it all comes together really, really, really nicely. And with a little lemon juice too, it's perfect. So this is like my house go-to white wine. When most people in America, when you say white wine, they think of Pinot Grigio, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Grigio, Pinot Grigio, you know? I'm not gonna spit this one.
Yeah. Very fresh and clean, yes.
Yeah, so this one is also all stainless steel. So they don't want any oak notes. They want it to just be fresh and bright. Does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns? Do you guys like this wine? Do you guys hate this wine? I'm getting some thumbs up, thumbs down. It's cool. I take criticism. I didn't make the wine, so.
I think it's great.
Thank you.
Great summer wine.
So sherry.
It's like a couple of dollars more than a below average Pinot Grigio or other Verdicchio, and it's so much better.
Yeah.
To me, it's more expressive for sure.
Yeah.
What do you guys not like about it? It's sherry and Farrell.
Nothing.
If you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Put him on the spot. He's eating now. Get him with food in his mouth. Go ahead.
I was trying to get the taste of the wine out of my mouth. I don't know. It just seemed rather flat. I like the other one better.
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
there's definitely less fruit here for sure. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more about.
I'm
Sorry?
a fruity guy.
To me, it's more about like minerality. It's savory. It's saline. It's herbaceous. It's like almost like Chablis. You know,
Yeah.
when you have Chablis versus you have California Chardonnay, there's like almost like no fruit in Chablis. It just tastes like wet rocks and citrus, and it's salty. And that, to me, it's like a very good food wine for those reasons, you know? The European kind of mentality. What's that, Kurt?
With food, you get more of the fruitiness and less of the minerality.
Yes, generally speaking, like the European approach is wine as a counterpoint to food. So whereas most California wines tend to be really rich and really bombastic and really forward, think about like Sonoma Pinot versus Burgundy or Napa Cab versus Bordeaux. The European counterparts tend to be earthier, more savory, kind of more subdued and mellow. And the idea in Europe, a European context, is you're going to have these wines with food as opposed to just drinking them on their own. So you don't want the wine to be the star of the show. You want it to be balanced with the food. And for me, I'm a huge, I think this is like my favorite wine of all the wines here.
Kevin, are you raising your hand or are you waving? I want to know what Kevin O'Neill thinks of this wine.
I liked it, Stace. I said I thought it tastes a little bit like champagne. You know?
A little bit of yeasty taste to it.
Pardon?
Little yeasty? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. I just thought it finished like champagne.
Okay.
I mean, champagne has a ton of acid too, because the acidity is what gives champagne the backbone and the length. And this wine has got a ton of acid. So on your palate, and particularly in the finish, you would have a similar palate presence to champagne for sure. Should we jump into rosé? Yeah. Okay, so now from Italy, we go to France. And you guys all had rosé, right? Everyone here? should be preparing to drink a ton of rosé this summer, because rosé is like the hottest wine in America right now.
Stacy, what year was it when you came back from the Olympics in England and you said, Kurt, I want 6 new rosés?
2014. No, 2012. 2012 Olympics in England. Everybody was drinking rosé.
Everybody was drinking rosé over there. They were a little bit ahead of us, but now we've caught up and passed them.
Yes.
So when I started in the wine industry in 2006, I was working at a restaurant on the beach in Long Branch, New Jersey. And rosé was like this like marginal thing that some people would come in, have on the beach, and it sold for 2 months out of the year, July and August, and then that was it. And like little by little over the years, it's like it was growing and growing and growing, and then all of a sudden it like blew up. And now people are drinking rosé all over the country, no matter where you are, no matter what the month is, no matter what you're eating. It just became this like summer in a bottle type of wine. And for any of you who've been to the south of France, you're crushing rosé, you're eating grilled fish on the beach. It's like kind of like a transporting wine. Whenever I have a glass of rosé, it like brings me back to that environment. So this is the quintessential, to me, spring wine, summer wine, fall wine, outdoor wine, on the boat wine, on the terrace wine, at the beach wine. It's like, just makes whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, like a little bit more enjoyable, and everything tastes a little bit better. So this is La Vieille Ferme Rosé. It's actually made by the same family that's going to make the next wine we're going to try, the Côte du Rhône. It's the Perrin family. So La Vieille Ferme, like I was saying earlier about Yellowtail, it's kind of like a gateway wine. When I was in college, I used to drink their red wine, and I thought I was like so sophisticated. I was bringing like magnums to my family, like Thanksgiving dinners and stuff, because I don't come from a wine drinking family. And this is like 20 years ago. So when I got the job with Vineyard Brands, I was like, things came full circle. This is the most popular, and this is a true statement. I'm not tooting my own horn or the Perrin family's horn, and Kurt will back me up on this. This is the most popular rosé in America. This rosé outsells every other French rosé in America.
Wow.
And for like $10, what do you sell it for, Stace?
I actually don't have it here because it was the substitute. I don't know. It is inexpensive, like 11, Kurt? 10, 11?
Probably even less than 11.
Not 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like delicious for that, right?
Yeah, I have to interrupt you because like 3 people have asked me where you worked in Long Branch because everybody's right by there.
Avenue. So I helped open Avenue in 2006, and I was there till 2011 when I went to New York. And then I stayed there as the sommelier and like wine consultant for 3 or 4 years. In 2013, I left full time and just stayed in New York.
Yeah, that's our
If I could make a quick comment.
What's that?
I was managing a Napa Valley brand called Jocelyn Vineyards. They were on Spring Mountain. These people have more money than I can count. Their house was for sale for $22 million. And his wife said, "Oh, I love this rosé. I can't think of the name of it. Let me go get a bottle." She walked into the house. She came out. It was La Vieille Ferme Rosé.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why it's like the #1 selling wine, because like for $9, it's like a lot of wine, you know?
It never disappoints.
So do you guys all know how rosé is made? Should we touch on that for a minute? So rosé is made from red grapes. So basically, think of like Cabernet. We'll use Cabernet as an example. Everyone here has had Cabernet before. You know, it's like a full body, deep, dark red wine. So if you take Cabernet grapes and you pick them and you crush them, you leave them for a month, the juice and the skins together in contact. And the juice absorbs or extracts all the color and a lot of the flavor and the tannin from the skins. So think about making tea for those of you that are tea drinkers. When you leave the tea bag in there for like, if you forget it and you leave it in there for 20 minutes, the tea becomes undrinkable. It's like dark and it's rich and it's like really tannic and dry and it tastes horrible, and you dump it and make a fresh cup. It's the same thing with making red wine, or in this case, rosé. So instead of leaving the skins and the juice together for a month, if you do it for a few hours, let's say 3 hours, 4 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, you make rosé. So you're extracting less color and less flavor and less tannin, and you're getting a pink wine as opposed to a deep, dark red wine. So this is made in the south of France, and it's made from grapes that are grown in the south of France, like Cinsault, Grenache, and Syrah. And it's the same grapes that are in this wine, but it's just the difference in production that yields a light, pale pink wine versus a deep, dark red wine. So in the case of this wine, they harvest the grapes, they'll pick them a little early to preserve the acidity. So you have a resultant fresh wine. They crush them, they leave the juice and skins in contact for a few hours, and then they drain everything off, and they get this pale, light, bright, juicy pink wine. So before we move on, one thing about the Perrin family, they're one of the largest landholders in the south of France. They make a super famous red wine called Chateau Beaucastel, Chateauneuf du Pape, which sells for like, Kurt, what is it, like $90 retail? Is that about right? So it's like $90 retail. It's usually a Wine Spectator Top 100 wine. It's actually hit, I think, the #1 wine a number of times, and it's hit the top 10 a number of times. The Perrin family also makes a super famous rosé called Chateau Miraval, and their partners for that wine are Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And basically, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie went to the Perrin family because they were such famous winemakers in the south of France, and they said, "Hey, we want to have a joint winery with you guys," because Brad and Angelina fell in love with the south of France, bought a huge estate that happened to have vines, and they knew nothing about making wine there. So they approached the Perrins about starting their own winery there. And then finally, the Perrins are the largest organic farmer of grapes in the south of France. So they own a ton of vineyards. They farm as many as possible organically, and they try to really be industry leaders for organic farming and environmentally conscious and sustainable farming in the south of France. So I think that's really cool and something that's to be commended. Cool. Do you guys like this wine?
Love it. So
Yeah.
you're saying Brad and Angelina fell in love with the area and then fell out of love with themselves,
Yes, that is actually literally what happened.
and they split the winery?
No, they didn't. Okay, so you know they have like a lot of kids, right? So because they have so many kids and because they invested so much in the property for Miraval and then in the partnership with the Perrins, so I think they bought the estate for like 20 million, and then they've put millions and millions and millions in refurbing the estate. So they built a trust for their kids so that the estate, which is like 120 acres or something, and it dates back to Roman times, will remain in this trust for the kids. So it was like they didn't want to sell it. They didn't want to divide the assets. They didn't want to take the business with the parents, dissolve the business. It was just like such a waste of a beautiful thing, that they decided to basically create a trust for the kids so the kids could have it and for generations to come. One of the interesting things about working with so many European family-owned businesses is that Europeans look at things very differently than Americans do in terms of business. They look at it like, what are my grandkids going to have? Or what are my great-grandkids going to have? They don't look at it like Americans when it's like, we want to build this business up and sell it at its height and take the money. The Europeans are like, we're going to look at this for the next 100 years, because the parents have owned Chateau Beaucastel for 100 years, literally. Like, that's literally true. It's like generations and generations and generations. And most of the families that we work with in Europe have owned their wineries and their businesses for at least 4 to 5 generations. So it's like their viewpoint is much longer. So I think they influenced Brad and Angelina's decision about how to handle things during a split, because it became less about dissolving an asset and more about what can we pass on to the future generations of our family, which I think is really cool. Yeah.
Does everybody like this? Did we already ask that? Everybody's so quiet.
I'm getting a lot of thumbs up on this one.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of thumbs up. I see.
Does anyone have any questions about anything before we jump into red wines? Comments? Concerns? You ready to do red, Stace?
Yeah, bring it
Okay.
on.
So conveniently, we're going to go from the Le Vieil Ferme Rosé to the Perrin Côte du Rhône Village. So same family, same philosophy, obviously. And basically, this is their entry-level line of wines. They make La Vieille Ferme white, rosé, and red. And now they just launched sparkling La Vieille Ferme. And then you go from there to the Perrin family of wines. And then above that is Chateau Beaucastel. That's the one I mentioned earlier. So because they're such large landholders, they have vineyards scattered all over the Rhone. So they make a ton of different wines under this Perrin family label. And the idea with the La Vieille Ferme label was, in Europe, you have that tradition of just drinking wine with meals all the time. So they wanted to make basically a good quality, inexpensive French table wine that Americans could consume like pretty much every day, and it wouldn't be expensive, and it would help to create that appreciation of wine as a daily activity, as a daily lifestyle, as opposed to a special occasion type of thing. Like wine in America 20 years ago, 25 years ago was much less consumed, and is more about special occasions as opposed to daily habits or daily rituals. So this is Côtes-du-Rhône Village. It's made from 2 grapes, Grenache and Syrah. So those were 2 of the 3 grapes in the La Vieille Ferme Rosé. And most of you guys are probably familiar with Côtes-du-Rhône, right? So Côtes-du-Rhône Village just means that it's a step up from a basic Côtes-du-Rhône. It means the grapes come from a series of specific villages that are a little bit higher in quality than basic Côtes-du-Rhône. Côtes-du-Rhône is a huge area. Côtes-du-Rhône Village is a smaller area. And then above that, you have individual villages, and the wines are named after those villages. So as an example, Châteauneuf-du-Pape is named after the village of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Gigondas is named after the village of Gigondas. But at one time, all of those wines were just Côtes-du-Rhônes. So if you're talking about like in the early 1900s, like 1905, 1910, it was all just a Côtes-du-Rhône. And then little by little, they started elevating the villages that were making the best wines consistently. Châteauneuf-du-Pape being the first one of those.
What's in Gigondas?
So Gigondas is another village that's just near to Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It's made from the same grapes as Châteauneuf-du-Pape, but it's basically another one of those villages that they elevated the level. The government says the level of Gigondas is better than the level of a Côtes-du-Rhône village, which is better than the level of a Côtes-du-Rhône, you know? And then Châteauneuf and Gigondas are like that, I would say. Like Châteauneuf is a little bit better than Gigondas. Gigondas is often like called like, I don't want to say like the poor man's Châteauneuf, but in a way that it is, because it's the same grapes. It's like you can almost see one village from the other village. But they've been making wines there for hundreds of years, and the French government realized that the wines from Châteauneuf are the best in the whole region. And then Gigondas is just a little behind that, and then Vacqueyras is just behind that, and Rasteau and Vansaube and a few other ones, Caran. And then below all those individual villages, you have a Côtes-du-Rhône. So this is the classic brasserie or bistro wine. This is like what you have with a steak frite, which is steak and fries, or you have with a roast chicken, or we have with a burger. So super classic French red table wine. It's rich and spicy, and there's like warm kind of warming. Think about like baking spices: clove, cinnamon, cardamom, red berry fruit, blackberry fruit. To me, Côtes-du-Rhône is like, you know, those first crisp fall days when you're transitioning from rosé and white wine to red wine. That's Côtes-du-Rhône. Or like in the winter with beef bourguignon or coq au vin. It's like, for me, it's Côtes-du-Rhône too. And also, the good thing about Côtes-du-Rhône is it's not super expensive, so you can afford, like, you can drink it regularly. And that's the idea with Côtes-du-Rhône too, is that it's a good quality, kind of purposefully rustic table wine that's very food appropriate and food friendly. Do you guys like this?
Love it.
I love it too. So, Stace,
Big
going
fans
from
here.
here. What's that?
Big fans.
Yeah, awesome. Thank
Yes.
you, guys.
You know, the Village, to buy Cote de Rhone Village versus Cote de Rhone is maybe $1.50 more or $2 at the most more, and you go up a whole notch.
The big step, yeah, for sure, for sure. And then to go from here to something like Gigondas or Chateauneuf du Pape, you're looking at $40, $50, $80, and you're going to get a little bit more finesse, a little more delicacy, a little more layering, and in some cases, a little more power and ripeness. But to me, I don't know, I like kind of like rustic wines. I like authentic, contextual wines. And when I have steak free, this is something that I like typically would order in a restaurant for sure, or at home too.
Hey,
You guys-
Michelle. Oh, wait, Michelle, how's your group like and everything? Okay. I feel like they're so far away, but they can see us and hear us.
They're drinking. I can
Michelle,
see
she's
them
got
drinking.
big speakers up or something in the backyard.
And the nice Edison lights too. You want to jump into the final wine?
Yeah, we're moving. It's going to be the quickest tasting I've ever had.
I can go slower.
Talk really, really, really slow. No.
I just need some questions too. Okay, so we're gonna go from France
Themselves.
to Spain. So this is the Marqués de Caceres Organic Rioja. And you guys can see there's a little theme here today with the organics. We're trying to be Earth Day conscious and environmentally conscious. So Marqués de Caceres is probably, I would say, one of the most famous Rioja wineries in the US. Kurt, is that a fair statement? A winery founded in the 70s. One of the preeminent wineries getting Rioja and Spanish table wine around the US in like the late 70s and 80s, getting Americans comfortable with Spanish wine and Rioja. And this is their organic bottling. So it's made from Tempranillo, like the basic bottling, but it's from certified organic vineyards. It's also vegan, for those of you that pay attention to such things. And it's made a little differently than their basic bottling. And the idea is to make a brighter, juicier, fruitier wine made for younger consumption. So Rioja typically is a wine that is consumed with a lot of age on it. And also it's aged for a long time before it's released. So there's a category of Rioja called Gran Reserva, which is aged for 5 years minimum before it's even released from the winery. And typically you would drink it with 8-10 years on it. This is the kind of the opposite of that style. It's a juicy, fruity, fresh style of Rioja. Just to kind of give people a different experience with Rioja than the classic, really earthy, leathery, cedary style. So this is going to be a little bit more floral aromatics, bright berry fruit. One interesting point is that Riojas tend to be aged in American oak as opposed to French oak, which this is aged in French oak. Most of the wines you get coming out of Napa in California are aged in French oak. Rioja is typically aged in American oak. So you get a different oak profile. So a lot of people say it's like coconut and dill as opposed to vanilla and caramel. So French oak being vanilla and caramel, American oak being coconut and dill. So on the nose, I get a completely different aromatic profile than the previous wine. And I think a lot of that is oak driven. But also bear in mind, this is made from Tempranillo now, as opposed to the previous one, which is Grenache and Syrah. Somebody asked, what makes the wine vegan? So wines are filtered and fined. When you filter a wine, it means you push it through a membrane. So you do this basically to get yeast and other particles out of the wine to make a clear wine that's stable. So just same way you would filter your coffee with a French press. Fining is a different process whereby you take an agent, you put it into the tank of wine or the barrel of wine, it binds to the proteins in the wine, and it becomes heavy and it precipitates out of the solution. So fining is basically like a more gentle way of clearing out a wine to make it clean and stable. Historically, they would use animal products to fine a wine. And some animal products that would have been used historically were egg whites, and that's the most commonly used one, but also, and this is literally true, bull's blood and isinglass, which is it's a protein from fish. So when you make the wine and you use these animal products, which is not as common now as it was 100 years ago, there's no remaining traces of the animal products in the wine. But vegans still find that it's not humane, it's inhumane to use those products to make the wine. So wineries that deliberately and purposefully don't use those products are vegan-friendly wineries. And in the last, let's say, 2 or 3 or 5 years, it's becoming really popular for wineries to note that on their bottles, because a lot of times vegans, first of all, weren't aware that there was animal products used in wine, and now that they're becoming aware, are starting to look for wines that are vegan specifically. Orchard Hill Lane peeps, did I answer that question well for you guys? Cool. So you'll see it a lot more now, and it's always in the back label. So if there's someone that's vegan, compared to 5 years ago, you have a significantly greater amount of choices in the store now to find vegan-friendly wines. And
Did you say this was a Tempranillo grape?
it is Tempranillo, yes.
So
It's probably 90% Tempranillo.
so Malbec's Tempranillo too, right?
No, Malbec is not Tempranillo. Malbec
it's
is a
not.
completely different grape.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So Malbec comes historically from the Bordeaux region of France, but it was brought via European settlers maybe like 150 years ago to Argentina.
Yeah.
And it really took off in Argentina, and it does really well in Argentina. So most people associate it with Argentina. But historically, it comes from Bordeaux in a region called Cahors in southwest France.
But it's not the Tempranillo grape?
No, it's two totally different grapes. You know how Pinot Noir and Cabernet are two totally different grapes?
Yeah.
Malbec and Tempranillo are two totally different grapes.
All right, thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you for the question. We've only had 2 so far. What do you guys think? You guys like this one? Yeah? Awesome.
The McGills rarely find something they don't love. Right, Trace?
I like that about them.
Yeah. They're fun people. Kurt must feel like he knows all these people because it's like the same people at every tasting, right?
I see several familiar faces. That's and we love those people.
Absolutely.
So I saw on the chat, Stephen put the question about Long Ranch. Where's Stephen?
Steve Mallets. He's talking. Steve, he's asking you about Long Branch. He's in Tinton Falls right now.
Have you guys been to Avenue?
Press Alt-A.
Yeah, we're in Tinton Falls. We've Avenue's a regular for us.
Cool. Awesome.
Absolutely, we go to Pier Village all the time.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're like 10 minutes away.
Yep. I know exactly where you guys are.
Yeah.
I'm from Freehold.
Oh, okay,
Oh, good.
sure.
So I'm a Jersey boy too.
Yeah.
Where are you now? Where are you now?
Right now I'm in Dumont. I'm at my friend's house right now. I
Oh,
live in New Brunswick.
okay.
We had a barbecue
So
today, which is
you're-
why I was going to set up
you're
outside.
right?
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, New Brunswick. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed
Yeah.
We've been to Electric Avenue.
that.
Awesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we got a question over here.
We missed those happy hours at Avenue.
Yes.
I don't think they're coming back. Maybe next year.
I forgot one.
They can't even get staff. There's no staff. So I don't know what they're going to do this summer. Yeah.
You're getting Ben, and that's how you
Oh,
told us you
wow.
were leaving.
Yeah.
You told us you were
How
moving.
different.
I remember they used to have a lot of foreign staff, like
No, they're not doing the J1 work visas right now because all the international travel bans because of COVID.
okay.
So they can't get the international. And then evidently with like the stimulus and unemployment, nobody wants to work in a restaurant.
It's true.
So
Yeah,
the restaurant usually has like 20 waiters. And right now they have like 5 waiters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens this summer.
Yeah. That's a
So
shame.
somebody else had a question. Oh, go ahead, Kev.
Go ahead.
We were,
Somebody
what
said.
did you major in college?
And how do you become a sommelier after college? Or during college?
It's actually easy. It's easy. So my undergrad was environmental science at Rutgers, and I was going to Monmouth for a master's of education. And I got a job at Avenue because at the time I was paying for college myself, and at Avenue in like 2006, they had a $21 appetizer on the menu. And I saw their menu and I was like, I know I can make like a ton of money here to pay for college.
Yeah.
So I got a job there and they were like, we need someone who knows about wine. And I had worked in New Brunswick at a restaurant for years during my undergrad. And I was like the wine guy there. I was the resident wine nerd. So they offered me a full-time wine job at Avenue. So I dropped out of grad school and I went to sommelier school in New York with the American Sommelier Association.
Cote Rome, you haven't had it.
So I got my first 2 sommelier certifications with American Sommelier Association, and then I went to WSET, which is Wine and Spirits Education Trust, and the Court of Master Sommeliers.
I don't like my setup here.
How long does it take?
So it's pretty easy to do, like post undergrad, for sure. But now with the restaurant climate being what it is, a lot of sommeliers are out of jobs because there's no restaurants that can afford to have a full-time somm. Compared to pre-COVID. So a lot of restaurants sold their wine lists, their wine cellars, just to help pay the bills during shutdown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where were you in New Brunswick?
Avenue.
No, in New Brunswick.
Oh, I was at Clyde's first.
Okay.
I was there for 6 years. Then I was going to grad school at Monmouth. I left Clyde's. I got a job at Avenue just part-time. And then I took the job full-time that fall. I dropped out of grad school, and then I went to sommelier school in New York. Then I was at Avenue for 8 years on and off, and then I started in New York, and I did 5 years in New York.
How long does it take to do sommelier school?
It really depends on how deep you want to go. You can knock out your certified in under a year, but you're still not really prepared. But you just have the certification. There's people who have been studying for the Master Sommelier or Master of Wine for 8 or 10 years.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
I know. No, I know.
So do you get to wear that taster around your neck, that little
Taste event.
thing?
I have one, but I choose not to wear it.
It's
It
very
looks a little
fancy.
dorky,
Yeah.
I have friends who work at Le Bernardin in New York, and that's what they wear during service, and that's what they actually taste out of during service.
Yeah.
And it's super classic, but it's like literally the only restaurant I know of in the U.S. that uses it.
Oh.
But I do have one, which I got in Burgundy.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go become sommeliers.
Do it. You can have my email from Stacy. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Sounds so much more fun than the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, but you make more money in the pharmaceutical industry. So it's like, make your money now, and then when you want to retire and have fun, then you join the wine world.
Yeah, then I'll hang out with Brangelina.
Yeah, exactly.
Patrick, do you get to travel a lot?
Pre-2020, I did travel a lot, and I'm really jonesing for travel. That's one of the things about this industry that I like the most. Kurt and I, in 2019, went to Portugal. We went to the Douro, which is near the city of Oporto. And then we went to the island of Madeira, which is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a tropical island. It looks like Hawaii, but there's wine everywhere. In Hawaii, there's wine at nice restaurants, but in Madeira, there's wine everywhere because they make a ton of wine. So that was really cool.
That is my next vacation.
It's funny, when I came home, I said to my wife, it reminded me of Hawaii.
Yeah, it's totally like Hawaii. I don't know why Americans don't go there more often. It's amazing and super easy to get
It's
to.
beautiful, and you can buy a really nice home there for $300,000. It would be a great place for a second home.
Evidently, Kurt has done his homework.
Billy, do you hear that? Billy's not listening, but that could be our next investment. But isn't it, and there's the big, like the little trams that you take down the hills because it's so steep.
Sleds, yeah, the sleds, yeah.
You tram up and you take the sleds down.
Wait, I
That's
missed
awesome.
that. What happened?
Well, our next wine trip, we're going to Madeira.
That sounds
Tell me
good.
before you go. 'Cause I'm the Portuguese grandma.
And
At the
Curtis,
same time, I was mentioning a bourbon tour, so sorry, I got off track. But
Okay.
it's good too.
So you and Bill are going to Kentucky, I hear.
yeah, we are.
I
we
don't
are.
drink bourbon, but maybe I'll come.
I've been planning that for a long time. But in the meantime, we're going to take a group trip. This whole group, we'll all go to Madeira. And Kurt says you can buy a vacation home on the island of Madeira for less than 300,000.
I'm in.
So we can VRBO it when we're not there.
I'm in too, Stace.
Okay.
Set it up, Stacy. We're there.
I was going to go back last year, but then, everything happened.
Everything ruined everything.
Yeah. Hey, but we all made it through, right? That's the most important thing.
So
We're all
far.
here.
So far. So how's everybody doing? I've never heard or not heard such quiet people in my life. Michael Kelly, what do we like? Unmute.
We're off mute.
What are we digging?
I would say in general, we liked all of them. There were a couple that didn't like certain.
I wasn't a huge fan of the third red. No, the
Third
fourth
wine.
red.
First red.
The first red.
First red.
Fourth wine.
I
Cook
love
your own.
Yeah, cook your own.
Okay.
I damaged the cork, so it's not
Yeah.
a bottle anymore.
Okay.
The glue was tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you liked everything overall.
Pretty good. I mean, not to say I'm not gonna drink.
Hey,
I mean, let's
don't
make that clear.
take this away from
Okay,
her.
Yeah, yeah, so,
All good stuff.
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. And you've done a
And
great
one
job.
of you guys is going to Sommelier School, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing the Clark.
Oh, no, Michael, I'm telling you, Michael's house, he has a wine room that's bigger than any of the stores I've owned, or maybe all the stores I've owned put together, square footage wise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Michael, when you want to invite me over, I'll say yes now, okay?
I'll put it to you this way. When I dropped off his wine kit the other day, I was the third wine delivery of the day.
Oh, wow. What kind of guy?
That's true, yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating. So somebody wants to know, Steve wants to know is Madeira close to Ibiza?
It's not, no. So Madeira is 300 miles west of Morocco. So it's off the northwest coast of Morocco in the Atlantic. Ibiza is an island off the east coast of Spain in the Mediterranean. So it's by the Canary Islands. Madeira is near the Canary Islands, if you know where that is.
Yeah, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. You'll have a great time. And like Kurt and I went, and the group that we went out for dinner and drinks, and it's like dirt cheap. Like you can crush some drinks, have a nice piece of fish, and it's like very inexpensive too.
And the wine from true Madeira wine is unlike anything you've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those of you that like bourbon or whiskey, the profile Madeira wine, because it's a very oxidative wine, and they keep it in barrels for years, like 20, 30 years. So the profile is very similar to whiskey. It's like caramel and vanilla and smoke and a lot of the same flavor profiles that you get from whiskey.
And it's fortified, but the acidity is so high. It makes the wine so interesting to me.
They made you feel, and I mean, you know what? Probably when we went, there was a big anti-American, I don't
No,
even
that's
remember how many
awesome
years ago
because
it
I have,
was.
I have a friend in
That's what
Portugal, so
But
Oh, there
Yeah,
you
that's
go.
a good trip.
Hate us
There we go.
Without even knowing anything about
A little side trip. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Portugal is great. Portugal, in 2019, Portugal was one of the hottest destinations for American tourists. It's like, it just somehow come up much later than the rest of Europe, mainland Europe, like Western Europe. I think in like between 17 and 19, like tourism there like tripled or something by American tourists in particular. Like everyone was going to Lisbon and everyone was going to Oporto. And the first time I went to Oporto was in 2002. I went backpacking through Europe and I liked Port, so I went there to go check it out. And it was very kind of rustic and provincial and like being in a little village in Europe, even though it's still a major city. But now when you go there, it's like very cosmopolitan. There's cool restaurants, there's cool wine bars, there's tons of tourists. And they built it all up in like within 20 years. It's like the change was amazing and how fast it happened.
Yeah, we saw a number of river cruises there when we were there.
And I have a famous bridge that was designed by the guy who designed the tower, the Eiffel Tower. Eiffel was his name.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
I haven't gotten to the second bit.
All right, does anybody else have any questions? Looks like the Goldsmiths are you guys breaking up now? We're shaking and saying goodbye? Oh, bye, Heather. She can't hear me. Okay. Oh, they're off. They're off. All right. So if there's no other questions, we'll let Patrick go. And we'll have our Cinnaminson reunion. There is literally everyone on this call has a connection to Cinnaminson. That's hilarious. If they're not like directly from Cinnaminson, even where's oh, my friend Shari and Carl. Oh no, Shari and Carl are there. Shari grew up in Cinnaminson a little bit. Then she moved to Morristown. We have some Morristonians here. That's so funny.
He's in Steve's hometown.
That's hilarious. Patrick, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Stacy. Thank you for having me. Thank you guys all for your time. Thanks for coming.
Thank
you.
Supporting our wines.
Awesome.
Good job, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were awesome.
Thank you again. I look forward to meeting you in person sometime.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kurt.
Great wines. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Josh.
Tracy.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
I'll talk to you all next week. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, my